Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Juror.
All right, this is episode 15 of Outside the Zeitgeist, and I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
I'm your resident skeptic, Greg.
And say hello to in the studio, Red.
Hello, darling.
Cheers, Greg.
Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express that the feeling is mutual. Fuck you.
I told you. Told you.
Starting early, are we?
So you should have titled yourself the eccentric philanthropist, Greg, this time.
By the time 5 episodes from now, I will have this thing down. You don't have a big giant statement.
Yeah, right,
to
Mister.
make.
I remember all the rules in board games.
Video games, board games. This is not a board game. This is a freaking podcast.
All right. So before we get into the nightmare fuel, we got some. Well, Greg has something that more positive he would like to share. Why are you white pilling people, Greg?
Why am I white pilling?
Yeah.
Why would I ever do that? But the first thing I'd like to just share is I'm very happy to say that the Olympics is taking a stand against politics. They are not in. They have a thing that you cannot support Black Lives Matter and you cannot take a knee. And in general, you just can't make political statements with regards to the Olympics. Or so it seems from what I've heard from being reported. But
yeah,
they don't stop you from outside of the Olympics for any athletes from doing it.
What do you got, Red?
It's curious that they're making a fine distinction between speech and protest. So what is being disallowed are protests by the athletes or anyone connected to them.
Yeah.
But of course, on Olympic facilities and venues, people can have whatever conversations they will on whatever topics they wish.
Well,
So I thought that was a very nuanced approach.
Well, I mean, there's that old thing of Greg not turning off his phone.
Forgot to turn the sound off.
As I used to tell my students, put it on pleasure mode.
Can I sit on your phone?
No.
Shit.
Why, you're not getting enough when you're going out into town there, Red?
I get wherever I go.
You saw nothing. Nothing happened. No.
But there is that whole thing of, never talk religion and politics at the workplace and all that, and people still do it anyways because people are going to people.
Well, not at Coinbase, not at Basecamp.
Yeah, Basecamp. That was the interesting one.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious.
All the people quitting that and, shut the fuck up. So here's another thing before we get into the nightmare fuel is that, so remember on the last episode that I mentioned about that girl has a fundraiser for her uncle passing away and needs money for funeral arrangements and all that stuff.
Sure.
So I sent her the BitChute link, and apparently BitChute doesn't like the raw video that I said. I have to change it to 720p before I upload it. But I sent her it still gives you the link, even while it's processing the video. So I emailed her the link, and here you go, it's in the show, blah, blah, blah. Emails me back, comes up 404 not found. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So, yeah, apparently on BitChute, our first episode has not been processed, even though it's been there the whole time. Probably because it's in that raw, in the state that I left it in.
The first episode, number 1?
Yeah, number 1.
That's good. That was a bad episode. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't even remember that far back. Just probably drank too much. But, so I'm looking for the video by searching through it. On another, without logging in. And I noticed that some people, there's view counts under our videos. So apparently, there's an average of roughly 30 views on each of our recent videos. And I'm just like, who the fuck is actually watching us?
I love you, whoever you are.
Look, I'm just positive that it's above, that it's in double digits.
Well,
I just can't wait till we get to triple digits.
Well, here's the thing, though, because I went through and I looked at all of them to see if there was any comments, and there weren't any comments. So I'm just
Charles,
like...
Charles, can I ask you a question?
Oh, hold on. Let me just say this.
Sure,
It was so I figured from that point, based on that, since there was no comments, that it was probably just a bunch of people passing through. Like, oh, I punched it up because it had something I was searching for, and no, it's not interesting.
Well, I have a couple comments about this.
Okay.
First, how long did it take to count as a view?
Exactly.
On BitChute, all you have to do is load the page.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I know on YouTube you don't really count it as a view unless you're there for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, because on BitChute I'll upload the video, and as soon as I click finish, it'll take me to the video, and it'll already have the one view, which is me looking at it.
Second thing is, if someone's watching it
Mm-hmm.
and they're not disappointed with it, how likely are they going to be to leave a comment? Very unlikely.
Well, yeah, I mean, if usually people only react when something pisses them off, so that means we're not doing our jobs then, Greg.
You know, we got to be more.
We got to piss people off more.
Absolutely.
Fuck you, people.
Fuck off.
Yeah, well, no, not fuck off, but fuck you, because we want them to fight. If they fuck off, then
I'd appreciate kind comments too, you know.
This is why nobody likes you, Red.
Everybody
I
loves me.
like you.
I put out.
But well, I mean, honestly though, Greg, if you do think you want us to get more viewers and whatnot, maybe we should hire somebody to do a commercial. And I think you know specifically who I'm talking about, and that's the CIA, because they make the best commercials ever.
I love
They do
that
make the best
commercial.
commercials. Especially when the commercial is woke.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I need to modify it a little bit, because there was one part when she's like, I can change a diaper in one hand and console a child in the other. No, it's more like I can put one child in chains with one hand and with the other give a child to Epstein. That'd probably be more accurate.
You don't have sufficient anxiety disorder. Maybe you need to amp up the mental illness to get some more traffic. Have you considered that?
Yeah.
I think we just need to see.
Maybe I should make my own version. I'm a test tube baby. I have trisomy 24. I flew around the sun once,
I think we just need to get woke when we do our advertising, because being woke in advertising gets a lot of attention, negative attention, but it gets a lot of attention, and we'll definitely, we could go Trump style on this. We just get all the attention. It's the best attention, by the way. All the attention.
It's the best attention. It's good. Just like my hands are really huge.
Any attention at all is positive.
How's my Trump,
Regardless
by the
of
way?
how
Is it horrible?
what?
How's my Trump, by the way? Is it horrible?
Yeah.
Moving
Good.
on.
So the CIA, which I just call them the corporate imperialism agency, because that's really what they are.
Sure.
If they really want a slogan, they should have something like "fighting the good guys since 1947." Although really, the CIA was around before then.
So you got to be a wokey to be a spook now?
I
Is this the
guess
way it
so.
works?
Well,
maybe they were already woke before woke was a thing.
No. I'm gonna go and throw out an interesting hypothesis for you, because one of the things that was mentioned is, I'm a woman of color, blah blah blah, right? So
BIPOC.
No, she didn't say that.
I'm gonna say.
Actually, she did say BIPOC.
Did she? I thought she said woman of color.
She dropped the BP once.
But well, anyways, so me in the back of my head, because this is the CIA and what they do, I'm just thinking, you know what? They probably just need to recruit some black and brown people so that they can overthrow different countries, because we already see what they do in many countries.
Oh,
and
so this is not
maybe
this
they're
is a
good
necessity.
Yeah, this is a necessity. They need to hire more black people so they can get them into the governments in Africa, so that they can have coups there and whatnot.
Yes.
So I wonder, it kind of raises the question, for me at least, that if discrimination on the basis of race, that being a protected class, and you're recruiting on the basis of that, is that an exemption
No.
to Title VII, because it's sort of like a requirement related to the tasks in the role? Or, I mean, I just don't understand why more people don't sue employers on the basis of woke, because definitionally, it's racial discrimination. It's discrimination on the basis of protected
I have
class.
a couple thoughts on that. First and foremost, if you're the government, anything you do is not illegal, according to the government. Secondly, if you're not woke and your company is woke, then it's against their rights for you to not be woke.
Well,
So by suing them
let's
with
generalize.
your lack of money, it's a bad situation.
Let's generalize that, because this is not really limited to this particular narrative. If you're not following the narrative of the company, because that's how it's been.
See, it's
just a different narrative
I
now.
just use woke as
an example, yeah.
colloquial term for anybody who does not following the narrative of
But
whoever's.
I would much prefer to generalize that, because it's been the same thing before. You know, if you don't follow the narrative of the company, we don't want you here, and so forth.
Sure, it's like I said in a previous episode. The moment you're hired in a company, if they want to get rid of you, they will find a way to get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
My brother used to work with, had a friend who used to work at a wonderful shopping mart that we go to all the time, and he would steal DVDs from the little spot in the front, you know, where they have the cigars and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They never fired him for that, so either they weren't paying attention, or they didn't care,
right?
Or they just needed some other excuse to get rid of him.
Yeah, or they figured the legal troubles would cost too much.
Right? And eventually, a few weeks later, he got fired because of the fact that he was late too many times to work.
Yeah.
So, anything a company can use, the smallest thing to get rid of, they will do it. If they don't want you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really anybody. But keeping in line with company bullshit and the CIA, you hear about the Intercept?
I heard about the Intercept.
What did you hear about the Intercept, Greg?
Awful things.
But they got a bunch of Gab user data, and the Intercept didn't. So apparently, wasn't the Intercept created when like Snowden came out to go against the deep state and all that stuff? And now they're like, hey, yeah, we're doing the FBI's work. Look at us, we're cool.
I think you'd be more on the know about that than myself.
But apparently they're also trying to advertise for fundraising so that they can remain a charity. And they're using Glenn Greenwald to help advertising, even though because Glenn Greenwald created the Intercept.
He was one of the founders.
Right, and then they kicked him out.
And they booted him out.
But they're
he went to
this is the part that makes no sense
Substack,
to
where
me.
he's kicking Intercept ass.
It's funny you mentioned Gab. I just want to interject this tiny little thing.
Sure.
Did you hear that the Texas GOPs voted to get rid of their own Gab account?
Nah. Why?
I don't know.
I mean,
it was a small, stupid story that I just came across, and I only mentioned it because you talked about Gab. But I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, but, we're going back to the CIA, though. I mean, obviously they need to recruit more people of color because their coups, some of them are working pretty well. I mean, it's obvious what happened in, what was that? Not Brazil.
Venezuela?
No, not Venezuela. What was that country with the fucking right-wing nutjob lady, that Christian nutjob lady that took over and gave the military carte blanche to kill people, and they were killing all the
Evita Peron?
I don't remember, but she
Drive for me,
Chile?
Argentina.
Colombia?
I can't remember the country.
Nicaragua.
But
No, Chile.
No,
Chile.
this was a couple.
Was it
It
Chile?
was probably Chile. It was a couple years ago. And so, but basically, what they were doing was they were just going around killing all the natives, because the natives voted in a more democratic leader.
Hold up. They were killing themselves?
No. The people that were indigenous to the country, right? There's a significant population, and they.
Do you mean like the indigenous Indian population?
What's that?
The indigenous Indian population?
Yeah, well, they're all like
See, I think-
civilized now, for lack of a better
I think the term
term.
native is misleading now.
Yeah.
Because I'm a native to the United States.
No, hereditarily native.
Yeah, but they came from, all those people came from...
I'm talking like you're talking. No, yeah. The people who the descendants of the people who were there first. There, you like that?
I do.
That's such a hard standard because everybody came through the Bering Strait
Right.
and moved in from
But-
somewhere.
so
it's a question
anyways-
of how far back you go.
So, anyways, she just gave people the military free reign to just shoot whoever when they did the coup and whatnot. But so you had that one, which was sort of successful, not for a long time. But then you have the repeated unsuccessful coup attempts in Venezuela, where the USAID came out, which the USAID is obviously a propaganda wing of the CIA.
Barf.
And they came out and they finally admitted that the what was going on at the Colombia border, where they were trying to get supplies into the country that was starving,
Go on.
was really them trying to help the regime change by Guaido.
Really? They actually admitted this?
Apparently they actually admitted it. Well, what a shock.
Did they admit that there were no weapons of mass destruction yet?
I mean, it's It's because you see all the propaganda from the media. You have the CIA and whatnot coming on the media
Yep.
and saying all this bullshit, and yet and Maduro, he's such a bad person, which everybody's got their problems, but this is a guy who let both sides protest, right? Block traffic for both sides protesting.
Okay.
Now, here's the funny thing: if you watch the protest for people that were marching for Maduro and the people that were marching for Guaido. The people that were marching for Maduro looked kind of like me, except for they were really dark skinned. They were dressed with me, like shabby clothing and whatnot.
Oh, did they have a
The people-
give me a dollar too?
The people marching for Guaido had lighter skin and were well dressed.
Oh,
I mean, I'm sure there's nothing there though,
so it wasn't the elites versus the non-elites.
and it wasn't racial at all either. I'm
No,
pretty
absolutely
sure.
not.
you know.
Absolutely not. No.
Hey, there's
Before
no.
we move into our next topic, with regards to government and such, I just want to issue a warning to people. May not be in 1 year, may not be in 2 years, 5 years, or even 10 years, but I want you to be looking forward to the never-ending sound of buzzing, zzz.
Well, it's not going to be the bees because all the pesticides are killing them all.
Yes, we're getting rid of all the bees. No more honey, unless they create it in
No more flowers, no more vegetables, no more fruits.
No more steak either. They're gonna artificially create that too. They'll start artificially creating everything. But moving on from that is that we eventually will have a society that is just littered in drones in the air, flying around. You've seen it coming. Everyone has been asking, when is Amazon going to start having drones to deliver my product? I think they already do. Or
Yeah.
they've been testing it.
Well, in Singapore, you already have
Sure.
drone rovers delivering groceries and whatnot.
Well, there's a couple things I'm concerned about with
I
regards
think
to
it's
this.
Singapore.
First, do I own the airspace above my property? If I do, and a drone flies onto it, am I allowed to shoot it down?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you're going to have to look at property rights being three-dimensional now.
Secondly, if a drone flies outside my apartment too many times and it makes too much noise, is that considered noise pollution? And can I sue the owner of those drones for when the noise is too loud, just as my neighbors are allowed to call the cops on us when we're partying too much in our apartments?
Oh, no, they're all going to be stealth drones. The ones that spy on people now when they're having parties and like, oh, you're having a party during COVID. Let's send the police there to
They're gonna have the
raid.
quiet Tesla engines.
Hmm.
All this being said about drones and my concerns about them, which are real,
Well, I mean, you do have the fact that it came out that Trump ordered more drones to be, he lowered the restrictions on the drone usage. This is the one thing, like, everybody's like, oh, well, Trump didn't start more wars. Like, he's actually in charge, like, any president is actually in charge of anything, really. But under Trump, it was more bombing and killing than Obama. It's just a natural progression, the military-industrial complex got to siphon the what's it called, money from all of us.
sure,
But, Trump lowered the restrictions on drone usage.
protect our interests on the poppy fields.
Yeah, I mean it's the same shit, and I'm pretty sure under Biden it's going to be the same thing.
So, you saying that Trump lowered the restrictions, I'm always a little wary about how much Trump was actually aware of what he was actually doing.
Well, yeah, I mean most of these people that get in office are puppets. They're elected because they're popular and they're easily controlled.
I would have said that I should say, I believe that Obama was more aware of what he was actually doing than Trump. Trump, it felt like to me, was being, he was tricked into hiring certain people just so that they could keep certain agendas running. Because Trump was obviously...
Well, I mean he did appoint Bolton, who is
Yes.
I mean
Terrible
one second, Red. With John Bolton, I mean, if you mention the word missile down that guy, if you mention the word missile to that guy, I'm pretty sure he ejaculates down a decapitated child's neck stump.
Oh, he doesn't say whose nose?
What do you got, Red?
Well, for early in the Trump admin, I can't imagine that there were a lot of candidates, a lot of nominees. And yeah, they hired old bushy people and just started firing people along the way. But then there's also the consideration that the Dems tried to tie up transitions within agencies with all these charges through media, the Russia collusion hoax and all that jazz. So, it was a transition that was somewhat paralyzed like no other before.
Well, I mean, I mean, the whole back and forth of that, it's all just it's a show and it's a shit show at the same time because it's all the fucking theater. Oh, you did this and do this word, blah 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 blah, and it's just the same bullshit
It's all
back and
one
forth.
shit game.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's hard to breathe with all the horse shit that goes on in there.
yeah, speaking of breathing, if anyone hasn't heard, apparently those very, very essential ventilators that we needed last year, that Trump was able to get tons and tons and tons pumped out, created, some of which sat in New York's dock or ports waiting to be used because they had such an oversupply of them. What happened to that oversupply of them? Well, apparently in Florida, they are being dumped. Brand new, unopened, completely unused at all. A local resident came across this, and he just shot a video of, and he says I just thought it was a lot of waste. I mean, thousands and thousands of medical units that are just being tossed out.
So, I have to ask the question: why were they being tossed out? Were they defective? Were they actually good?
They opened up one of the.
They opened up and they were
They
actually
opened
good?
it up and they were all new and good.
Oh well. Now here's the other question: who paid for all of them?
Oh, we did.
Oh, that's it right there.
Our tax money paid for all this, and they just throw our money away. Constant abuse of taxpayers' dollars. Now I can't say that the dollars from my state paid for the ones in Florida, but I'm almost certain they did.
What do you got, Red?
Well, early fog of war, we knew less then than we know now, not that we know that much more now, but the states were squealing for personal protection equipment and other devices such as respirators with the expectation that potentially the hospitals would be overrun. It did not materialize quite that way, right? There were hotspots that experienced very heavy traffic, but largely everything else was relatively chill, no overrun.
I mean, that is a good point.
That is fearing the worst, preparing for it, and oh, wait a minute, big disappointment. It's not as bad as we feared because we didn't know Jack. Now we know slightly more than Jack, and it's all a mess.
But at the same time, too, I mean, this whole, because we saw people overreacting with the swine flu.
Yep.
We see people overreacting with every potential snowstorm that can come around in the winter.
Oh God.
I mean, now that is true. I mean, there is something to be said about being prepared for the worst, but there's also something to be said to having an accurate speculation of what the worst could be, because a lot of this for the past year has been a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies, a lot of false information and so forth that we're all supposed to swallow. What do you got, Red?
We started out with really poor, unreliable information, and all the information since then has been only more confusing. The media is not helping in framing questions usefully for individuals towards the objective of bringing people together and disseminating accurate information. It's been all propaganda.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
one of the largest outflows of this is that experts as a class have been largely discredited. I don't know what to believe when and where.
In the last year, you've seen probably one of the greatest appeals to authority that we've had, that you've seen on such a massive scale. And then, especially with Dr. Fawcett spewing all of his bullshit. Oh, no, now it's this. Oh, no, now, what, get the fuck out of here.
They didn't even tell us that we needed the doom spell until we were already indoctrinated into the fact that it was 15 days. Past 3 times 15 days.
Man, as long as 2 weeks of my life.
15 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Wasn't that what they said? They said 15 days.
Which was fucking, if you know
more
anything
than a year
about,
ago.
if you know anything about anything, that was fucking ridiculous horseshit from the get-go. But yet we're supposed to believe the science, just like this scientist right here. Look at this article. Black physicist rethinks the dark in dark matter. Let's check out this article. Shonda Prescott Weinstein, so she married a Jewish guy, was thinking about particle physics.
It's Weinstein.
Wait a second.
Weinstein. Yeah,
Prescott Weinstein?
No. Prescott-Weinstein.
Okay, yeah. I gotta get used to my
Is
fucking
he a
glasses.
Democrat? Why
No,
does he have a hyphenated name?
This is a she. This is a black woman.
Okay.
Because that's important. So
It
Shonda
is?
Did they
Prescott
mention
Weinstein
that?
Weinstein was thinking about particle physics when many kids were running around in tag and video games. You know what? So was I. She fell in love with the field after her mother took her to see A Brief History of Time, Errol Morris's 1991 documentary about theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. She was only 10 years old. Almost
Wow.
30 years later, she was the first black woman to hold a
There
tenure-track
it is.
faculty
There it
position
is.
in the theoretical cosmology as an assistant professor. At the University of New Hampshire, Prescott won. It's spelled two different ways here.
Is it? Oh my God!
That's why I said it the other way. Prescott Weinstein is one of the few core faculty members in the country, both in the physics and women's and gender studies departments of higher education.
Hold on.
Wait, is
hold
she a
on. I need- I need- I need-
cosmologist or
I
a
need to put-
genderist?
I need to put a pause to this before we continue on. First and foremost, journalists, get your fucking act together.
No, wait.
No.
Wait, hold that thought
They
because
need
I got stuff about that. Just wait.
They need to.
No, hold that thought.
I'm holding my thought because I got a bone
Hold
to pick
that
with these
thought.
people.
I'm gonna skip a paragraph. In her new book, blah 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 blah. In her book chapters, including the physics of melanin, black is a luminescent and anti-patriarchal agenda, including
what?
the crossroads of astrophysics and particle physics and physics. Her focus is on the intersection of black feminists in thought and anti-colonial theory. What the fuck does any of this have to do with science?
How does that have anything to do with physics?
It doesn't. It has everything to do with corrupting the hard sciences with woke.
Oh wait, check this out. She points out the terms like WIMPs, which is an acronym for weakly interacting giant particles, or massive particles, or minor
Why
particles,
is it-
really.
why does
Weakly
it say
interacting
giant?
minor particles. Yeah,
Isn't that wig?
yeah, it's weakly interacting minor particles, and their relative machos, or major astrophysical compact halo objects, which this person is a moron. Yeah, the person.
Whoa, I think they did that on purpose.
Because they're funny.
But so here's the thing. Now here's where it gets to the fun thing, because when I heard about this article, I was watching Nick Rekieta and he was reading it, so I was like, okay, punch up the article. So I'm reading the article and I was like, oh, this is the same article, except for words, a word or two was changed every here and then.
Hold up. She makes a great point in what she writes here. Physicists love acronyms, and the physicists who came up with WIMPs and machos were arguably men.
Yeah, what the
And
fuck does it have to do with anything?
I just want to point out that if she is right, absolutely, because men are great at coming up with bad jokes. WIMPs and machos are obviously just terrible dad jokes.
Well, yeah, I
And
mean, that's what I
see
do
no
on the
problem
show all
with
the
those.
time.
I see no problem with
That's
those.
what
I approve.
I mean, that's what I do on the show all the time. I mean, I love bad jokes, I love dad jokes and all that stuff. But no, so the other thing I wanted to get to was, yeah, so he's reading this, I'm following along, but I'm noticing that some words are different, coupled with the fact that, you know, the bad typing and editing and all this shit. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, they're copying each other. These news outlets are copying each other, and they can't even get the fucking information right when they're copying each other.
Okay.
It's a massive
I don't know
circle
what she's
jerk.
claiming in this, but she's making some absurd claims about
Oh, yeah,
women and
it's-
people of color here, and I'll tell you, I've never felt like people of color. I hate saying those words.
Colored people?
Minorities. I've never felt minorities were discluded from history from their roles.
I just
in
don't.
it.
Well, I don't like the term in general, just because it's fucking stupid.
It
I
is
mean,
fucking stupid.
people-
You could say people of color, but you can't say colored people.
I have color to me.
Apparently not.
Oh,
You're
okay.
all white. That's
Well-
just like your shirt. That's why if
Well,
you were
see,
to stand
there.
against the wall.
Now, see,
you'd be
here's the
you'd
thing.
be
We could
disguised.
talk about the additive color spectrum or the subtractive color spectrum, because
Why don't we just talk about the negative color spectrum?
that's a subtractive color spectrum.
No. It's negative.
Because in the subtractive color spectrum, white is the absence of color. In the additive color spectrum, black is the absence of color. So.
I think there's a neutral color system in which you have gray.
Oh my god, it's just so fucking ridiculous. But yeah. But we're supposed to go along with all these ideas.
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to go. Oh, believe what we're told, and if you don't, you get canceled.
Just,
you get removed from social media.
Look forward to one of our Monday segments when I put up the art piece called "Because Science."
Actually, we'll keep those for the ATEs.
Sure.
Just for
Sure.
yeah.
So, anyone who's been following along since January 6th with the media narratives and all that crap, has learned that Trump was banned from what I call Facebag. Facebag put off a decision on whether they were going to permanently ban Trump, or if the decision was even valid to do it, for quite some time. They put it up to the board. The board came back and said, yes, it was a good decision. But Facebag is ultimately responsible for making the final decision as to how long he is going to be punished or how he's going to be punished. So they kicked the ball down the road, as most people do when they hate making decisions, because no one likes to be responsible for any decisions that are made, just like our politicians. Oh, it was Trump's fault. Oh, it was the guy from New York's fault.
Oh, somebody's at fault for something that somebody did. Oh, that's a shock.
Yeah. It can't be my fault.
I mean, it can't be the fact that maybe the person themselves, and that's always the thing, right? Everybody always wants to blame some outside force because they're afraid that they might do the same thing. Oh,
God forbid we
it's
take
video games
responsibility.
that people are violent. Oh, it's other movies. Oh no, you blame something outside people because that is the ultimate fear that they could be the same way. They could become the thing that they hate, and it's over and over and over again. And speaking of hate. Oh, I'm sorry, not hate, love, and everybody getting along and so forth. So there's more that more came out about that Juror 52, the one that was wearing the shirt.
Oh. Did they find any relevant information out?
So here's the thing. So they've been going over his jury questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the actual protest that he went to. So he didn't go to a protest per se.
I don't know if I actually believe that.
Well, here's the whole details, because there's a lot of nuance in this. So what he went to was the annual March on Washington thing from Martin Luther King, okay. and that's where he was. That's when he was wearing the shirt and so forth. But on the other hand, the theme of it was the fact of the police, and the theme of that particular March on Washington was police involvement. Police. Activity on, killing black people and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So when this juror, and there's the other thing too is that the lawyer for Chauvin didn't do a really good job vetting the lawyer. He didn't do a good job, ferreting out what he was doing. He asked specific questions, not really general questions. Right, were you ever at a protest supporting Black Lives Matter or some? I forget what the question exactly was, but that's the thing. That was a problem, is that he asked a very limited question and not an open question of were you ever at a protest for police behavior or some shit like that.
Can I get a refund on this then?
So it's going to be interesting to see, because they're going to have a special hearing just for this juror. It looks like it's not something that happens often. But they're going to have a hearing based on whether or not this juror was biased, and they're going to look into all that. And the Chauvin defense is they're not asking for a mistrial, they're just asking for a new trial. Still looks like Chauvin's guilty, still looks like he's going to be convicted if he gets a new trial. But at the same time, if we're going to at least have the illusion of justice, it might as well have some substance behind that illusion.
So I want to say that I don't think that this was a rally. I think this was a protest that he was at. And the reason I say that is because the media can say that a riot rather, is not a protest.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can say a riot is not a protest, then he can say that a protest is not a protest and call it a rally instead to, de-escalate it a little further.
Potato, what's the difference between a rally and a protest? I can tell a riot apart from either one of those two.
Sure.
As long as it's mostly peaceful, but,
The other thing is, apparently he lost the shirt that he was wearing in the photo. He doesn't even remember having it, and yet he had another video up on some other platform where he was wearing it again on a separate occasion. This guy is clearly lying about his bias and a number of other things, and he is not the only juror we've heard from talk about the fact that they were biased in some way towards the decision that they were going to make about the trial itself. We had the alternative juror who was talking about the fact that she just didn't want to have to deal with the fact that there were two different sides that would be angry if they made one decision over another.
Right.
So they went with she was going to go in the way that made it such that she wouldn't get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
we have such a bad system.
Well, here's the thing. The judge chose, despite an application, to not sequester the jury. But what would it take to sequester the jury when media is ubiquitous? It's in our phones. We're looking at it all the time. It's not like it's limited to the evening news. How do you sequester? Give me your mobile. That's not going to work. So, is basically the nation as a pool of jurors tainted? What do you do about that?
There is, to an extent, a percentage of people who are aware of the internet and use it on a basis that is more than daily, and I would say that represents at least 30 to 50%.
So
of the
only the
population
Amish
at
can be
large.
jurors.
No, what I'm saying is there is also a percentage of people who interact with this stuff that are just not aware of what is actually going on, and I know that for certain because even though
Well, you're going to get that in any crowd.
Yes, but I watch a lot of political content, and I sometimes fall into the falsehood that since I'm watching it, other people must be watching it, which is just not true.
The solipsism.
Yep. My brother, my coworkers, even my roommate, they are not watching stuff on the internet to an extreme degree. Even though I see on the bottom of a video millions and millions of views or a couple 100,000 views, there's really actually only a very small amount of people in general. If you even think about it, 600,000 people sounds like a lot, but that's less than a percentage point of the entire population.
But speaking of TV and blaming people.
Sure.
Okay, so this audio is going to be off. Not like our audio isn't off right now because we're fucking poor. Fuck you all. But so yeah, let's play this. I think I stopped at the right point. Nope, that's not it right there. Nope, that's not it.
There we go.
Around 30% of Republicans say they won't get it, and it's not hard to see why. Because fears and doubts about the vaccine have flown around conservative media. We want to
Oh yes, conservative media.
Wait, hold on.
About this vaccine. Why are Americans being discouraged from asking simple, straightforward questions?
Okay, so some of you probably couldn't hear that. The audio is a little low. We didn't prep for this. I wasn't expecting to have it downloaded. But John Oliver was pointing to the fact, or he was saying that people believing Tucker Carlson for not getting the vaccine.
Yeah,
which is more of that, we got to blame a person because people aren't doing things that we don't want them to do.
I find this entire segment very interesting. It's just, there is a big war between media companies as well as pharma companies happening right now. And Tucker Carlson being the most opinionated, conservative, right-leaning individual that makes any mainstream news network. He seems to be the target amongst every other left-leaning network that is out there because he is getting a lot of views and they are not getting as many views as he is getting. And
Womp
so
womp.
the best thing to do is to take down your opponent, what people in high school did. If they saw someone was too popular, they would find a way to take that person down, so that way they could be popular again. Because that's all seems like the media cares about is being popular.
It's the crabs in a bucket. I mean, that's really what it winds up being, because that's the whole thing. That's the major thing about society that I'm just like, I don't want to fucking deal with anybody because society is stupid, is that rather than people building themselves up, I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit and just try to pull people down.
Sure.
Fuck all you people.
Other thing I want to point out is John Oliver, in that small segment, tried to blame the entirety of vaccine hesitancy on Republicans and the right-leaning media networks, and that is just not true. The CNN, MSNBC, all of the left-leaning networks as well have put out information that just makes people afraid to get it. They've mentioned the fact that the blood clots. They've mentioned the fact that Johnson & Johnson was paused. They've said a number of things which just would stop someone who is rationally thinking, maybe I shouldn't get it quite yet. Maybe I'll wait a little bit before I go ahead and get
Maybe I trust my immune system to do its fucking job.
Yeah, seriously. 99% or higher if you are under 70 to survive the virus.
I mean, the real concern is not so much am I going to die, because it's so unlikely. We may as well treat it like zero. It's not actually zero, but close enough to that.
Yes.
For me, my big worry is, well, what about the long-term effect? If you get the infection and recover, great, you're not dead, but there is a small population that has long-term effects. Lack of clarity when thinking, shortness of breath, and other respiratory issues. But you got to balance that against the risk of what about this new technology, mRNA vaccine, which is really a form of gene therapy? It puts in viral DNA so that in time your personal DNA has a new addition from this brand new little mini fragment of a virus. It's
Right.
rewriting our DNA. So all these people who assert, oh, I wouldn't eat GMO, are sort of lining up pretty quick to themselves become GMOs.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly it. And the other thing too is that what we see on all these media outlets from the Con 6 is the main push is to have a lack of nuance and the lack of considering things. It's one way, it's my way or the highway. If you're that George Bush line, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Go ahead.
I want to make another point. People keep mentioning the long-term effects of COVID-19. I've never heard people talk about the long-term effects of any other. It's influenza-based, isn't it?
No, it's a corona. Yeah, it's based on, it's a
You're
derivation
both,
of SARS.
you're both right.
Okay.
You're both right.
No one talks about the long-term effects that even if you get the common cold, if you get any sort of virus over the course of a year, strep throat, any of these things that are just, they occur over the course of a year. We ignore them until it actually affects us or someone we know.
Yeah.
But there are a number of long-term effects that are very similar to what COVID has, that these other viruses and bacterias and stuff cause in people, and no one makes a big deal about it. No one says anything about it. I find it's
Well, the common cold,
it's disgusting.
which is actually caused by what is called the rhinovirus.
Sure.
Rhine meaning nose.
Yeah.
Is actually another type of coronavirus.
Yes.
So that's the other thing, like using this term coronavirus and so forth.
It's not really accurate.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, it's an overgeneralization, right? The specific virus that you're talking about, I'm slurring my words here. Jesus Christ, I didn't even drink that much. But anyways, the specific virus or viral strain we're talking about is the SARS-CoV-2 that is, and it's not even that damaging
I really think that a lot of
to the average person.
the language that is being used as far as COVID-19 is concerned, or many of the hot topics right now, is purposeful in that it is
Right, it's all about
confusing.
creating to confuse people and divide people, because you hear on one network, oh, you should do this, and then the next day from the same network, oh no, don't do this, and then it's, oh no, go back to this. I mean, and you see this a lot in scientific reports that come, because they don't, when the news media reports on scientific studies, all they ever report on is the initial studies. They don't report on the peer reviews that have come afterwards, because that's boring to a lot of people. The new, and that's, they want
the hot stuff.
They want the hot stuff, right?
And then they take one term and they turn it into another, like infected being turned into cases.
Yeah, and it's that whole.
They keep pushing the envelope to see how far they can go with these things.
But again, there's no information coming from the Con 6, and this is something that anybody can see. There's no information coming from the Con 6 in general, because in one way or another, it's you should do this, you should do this, you should do
It's
this.
directive rather than actually reporting, this is our understanding at this time.
Right.
These are the questions that remain on the table.
Right, it's
one more point. These are the metrics that give us a picture of what's happening. Oh, this is how it's changed because we've come to learn this new consideration, or there's a new question at the table. It's nothing like that. It's lots of conflicting emotive directives.
Yeah, well, that's basically what I was getting to, is that there's no
Sorry, Charles.
What's it called? There's no, here's the information, decide for yourself, decide what's best for you.
It's not
It's-
helpful. It's not helpful. It is not empowering. It's exactly the opposite. It is narrative. It is propaganda. It obfuscates, and it heightens fear. Because
yeah.
fear drives clicks, which drives revenue, and all these corporate media establishments are horribly, horribly corrupted.
Right. So that brings us to the topic, because we can start with the question of what role should the media have in the society, in this new society that we're creating?
Well, media is not monolithic, right? Because you have lots of different media.
It
You know,
shouldn't be, but oftentimes.
Well, nothing should be monolithic.
Yeah, nothing should be monolithic, but oftentimes people tend to treat something that's been around for quite some time and that they trust, quote unquote, in as a monolith. You become what's that word? You take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're expecting that if it's always true, rather if it's true before, it must always be true because you've seen it be true a number of times.
Yeah, that's that's the whole wanting to have stability. I mean, me personally, the only thing I trust is these two hands. I mean, they get everything done for me, especially in my alone time.
well, Gregory,
I'm not dignifying that with a response, which was my response.
I mean, what you're describing is a deficiency, a cognitive deficiency in reasoning, right?
Mhm.
That is the cognitive bias of what was before will continue to be.
So, what role do you think media should have in our society that we're building?
Well, I mean, actually, it's probably better to approach it from this way. How do we prevent the problem that media is displaying now? Because this is not a new problem. This is not something that's just recent. It may feel recent to a lot of people because nobody pays attention to shit until the shit hits the fan.
I think it's an issue of not how do you control the media, because as
Well, I was saying, how do you prevent the media from being controlled?
you can.
You make it you make it very distributed, and people will have to,
We already have that.
And
it is
we
so
need more in that
distributed.
direction. We need
Well, I wouldn't say it's distributed anymore. There's a reason why I call it the Con 6. And then, we have that all those videos came out before with Sinclair Broadcasting. And that article that I just punched up, which was basically repeated somewhere else.
There is a disparity of distribution amongst articles, rather publications, I should say. Okay? And that has everything to do with the agreements that certain companies make with other companies. Okay?
Mhm.
Google has obviously made some agreements with certain publications to make certain that their stuff pops up more easily.
Oh, yeah. I
than
mean,
other
Time
stuff.
Magazine admitted
Okay.
all that.
So
That's called a revenue generator.
I think the real issue is, and this goes back to things I've said all along with friends and family of mine, is that you need to have better lessons being taught in our school. Okay. 'Cause
Oh, like
if
last episode we were talking about.
If you go to school, okay, what are you being taught? You're being taught history.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
No, not really.
It's
You're
all
right, but
corrupted
I'm talking about
Wokista.
classically what you would expect to get out of school, right? You have a history class, you have a math class, which is racist. You have an English class,
Which is
Racist.
you have a science class, which is not science anymore.
It's got to
is
be
now
anti-racist.
Everything's racist, by the way.
yay.
So you got a gym class, right?
Mhm.
That's
those are
racist.
your 5 core type things.
No, gym class is sexist. Let's keep it
And
straight.
racist, Charles. Everything's
I just thought it
racist.
was genderist,
That too.
which is apparently different
Gym
from
class
sexist.
is all the ists.
Well,
Isn't that where a
okay.
lot of people would learn sex ed back in the day?
Well, that was physical
I
fitness.
always like the lab
Health ed.
component
Health.
in sex ed.
That was health ed.
Oh yeah, health.
Health. So we've got our core areas, right?
Mhm.
But I also think the ability to critically think.
That's.
Just in general, I think that should be a course, okay? And I think including that course should be
Oh, you mean like what Mark Crispin Miller was teaching?
sure. There should be a course for in addition to math as a subclass of math, but mandatory for students. There should be something about
Well-
accounting and such.
Well, I mean,
Statistics as well.
yeah, they're so they throw. What I've seen in modern curriculum is they throw some basics of logic into geometry, which is why I'm like, if you're gonna teach logic, call it logic. Don't call it geometry. But they teach that. But when I taught, now keep in mind I used to teach adults and would weep because of
How woefully educated they were?
well, not only that, but
Charles, were you teaching whiteness?
I know I'm so horrible. But actually, you know, it was interesting because a lot of the students because I taught at a for-profit institution, so a lot of the students I had were the Jerry Springer crowd, and then once they realized they can get the government dollars, they went after veterans to get them into the school.
Oh.
But a lot of the people that I would teach, I could just see the shitty educational system coming out, not only in their expectations of the class, but their expectations of themselves and the expectations of the future. And one thing I would do is whenever I could squeeze in a few moments, is I would do a critical thinking puzzle with them, which is, you know...
Critical thinking is amongst the most important of skills. I think
it is probably the most important skill, because that's your ability to analyze things and problem solve.
We should define what we mean by critical,
So-
meaning analytic, as opposed to the way that the wokeistas use critical, which is to say bitch ad nauseum and take no responsibility for making anything better.
Well,
Just
in a
demand that
general
others
sense-
fix for you,
in-
because struggle between oppressed and victim and all that jazz.
Well, in a general sense, the term critical means that you are... how do I want to put this? You're operating or examining within a way that does not necessarily provide a... How do I say this?
Analytical to understand versus analytical to destroy, dismantle, deconstruct.
It's not so much that, because you're talking about there being a view that, you know what, I got to think about this. I'll try and think about it and come back with a better definition. But the word critical does apply in this instance.
Do you want me to pull up the definition from some crazy
Yeah,
website?
pull up the definition.
Pull it, Gregory.
I can pull it up over here too. Because there's different ways that the word critical is looked at.
Critical thinking. Critical thinking, as defined by Google from Wikipedia.
They don't go from Google.
Yeah, I
Actually,
know,
it's hard.
these are terrible.
It's hard to find. It's hard to punch up any definition
I'm just
anymore.
going to give them their definition before I go to another one. Critical thinking is the analysis of facts to form a judgment. That's pretty succinct. The subject is complex and several different definitions exist, which generally include the rational, skeptical, unbiased analysis or evaluation of factual evidence. Wow.
So what do you do with that, Gregory,
Okay.
when facts become optional because of relativist woke view that all cultures and all lived experience is equally valid, and you cannot understand the content of a lived experience unless you're a member of that victim class? I mean, there are no facts.
Well, okay, so as I was taught in school, when I was writing any essay or any paragraph of document in any kind of way, okay, if I'm going to write something, I need to reference where I'm getting information from, okay, if I'm getting information from something. And if I'm getting that information from something, I must use a minimum of 3 references. Now, unfortunately, I think we've gotten to the point where information has gone so crazy that you can have 3 references from 3 different sources.
And one of them is deepfake.
Well, I'm not going that far. What
Or,
I'm going to say is that
or they're cross-referential, so they create a circle jerk
I'm
of bullshit.
going even further than that, okay? So we have gotten to a point where, because of how the internet works and how just digital information works, there are people creating digital content that is already wrong in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're referencing the wrong stuff already, you're going to continue down a path that continues to go through that wrong information. I don't even know if I can trust Merriam-Webster on stuff anymore.
Well,
because
this is
they've
more.
changed.
Yeah.
But it's better than Wikipedia for certain.
But this is what I was talking. So they have this definition here, including variant readings and scholarly emendations. So
What is emendations?
emendations.
I mean, what we're getting here is the study of
You spelled it wrong.
dialectics,
It's an E.
right?
Yeah. Alter design to correct or improve, and that's where
Alteration designed to correct or improve. Okay, guys, I just want to pause one moment. What I just did is the first thing you should do anytime.
Don't
you
tell them to do that. Then they might think for themselves.
Fuck off. The first thing
No,
you
you
should
guys
do
fuck off.
when you don't understand something is for critical thinking is you look up what you're trying to find out. If you don't understand a word, don't assume that you know what the definition is. find out what the
Right. And
definition is.
But that's where the idea of critical thinking comes from. Is the idea of thinking outside the box, not taking what is in front of you for granted and looking for solutions that go outside what you would expect them to be.
Validate independently.
Independent thought, right? Yeah, independent thought as well.
That's what I'm saying. If you come to a conclusion about something, you would want to check it
right.
as many ways as possible.
So one of the critical thinking, like the easiest one I would start off with, is a verbal puzzle, and then the whole idea is that I present them with a situation, and this also teaches them other skills like listening to each other, trying to memory skills and whatnot. But I present them. Hold on. I present them with a situation. And they have to tell me the sequence of the events that leads up to that situation. And they can only ask yes or no questions. So it's like detective work. And so the easiest one I start off with is there's 10 pieces of charcoal on the ground in the middle of a field. Why? And then they have to ask nothing but yes or no questions. And I answer as best as I can. Yes, no. This is relevant. This is possible. And, you get, and if they pay attention and they start thinking outside the box, and eventually about 20 minutes later, they find out that, some kid built the snowman, and then the snowman melted.
That is one conclusion. I would have come to the conclusion that someone was drawing in the area and just decided to leave their charcoal.
Right. I mean, but the whole idea is that there's this situation that doesn't fit into a framework that people are used to, right? Because most people go, well, the first questions people ask, was somebody cooking? Was somebody having a barbecue? Is there a mine nearby? So forth. And that's fine because that's what people expect normally. But the whole point of the exercise is that they have to look outside their comfort zone, what they're used to, and try to find out the reality of what's going on.
So I just want to point something out. I came to a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
What you should be doing is finding out the conclusion. You shouldn't be coming to a conclusion and trying to prove that conclusion. And oftentimes, in society, we have people who already have a ending in mind
mm-hmm.
when it comes to some sort of idea. So, these people are being discriminated against. And the conclusion is that this system is racist. How do I prove the system is racist? And then they keep going backwards to make certain that all their answers get to it, rather than saying, let me try and see what is causing this and then come to a better conclusion of what actually is happening. Because I can't say this is racist. All I can say is that there are situations that are causing what appear to be racist things to occur.
All right,
You're describing the difference between a search versus advocacy, where you a priori are in the space of a conclusion to which you're committed for whatever reason and looking to create a structure under it to support it.
Right. And
that's a difference.
And part of the psychology behind it is that people will push the ending conclusion because one of two reasons. One, they came up with it themselves, or two, they got this conclusion from somebody else. So either way, it becomes a way for them to validate their identity.
So if we go back to teaching in school,
mm-hmm.
I think that this, along with some other secret skills, I would call them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're classes you don't actually learn. So interacting with people,
mm-hmm.
okay? Socializing. Going to school is supposed to teach you how to socialize.
Not I don't like socializing with people. Fuck you guys.
Well, not because they actually teach you how to socialize with people, but because you're interacting with people, you are supposed to pick up the subtle skills of interacting with people.
Yeah.
I think ultimately that actually fails. It was good up to a point, but I think because school became available to...
The problem is that, there's a lot of... What's that?
Nothing.
Yeah, I cut you off. Fuck off. The problem is that a lot of this stuff is you're supposed to just pick it up on your own rather than somebody explaining it to you. Now, for me, like I said, I was picked on a lot as a child. I was a lonely child, didn't really have any friends, and I know.
So was I.
Yeah, so cry for us a little
Don't
less.
Don't cry for me. I learned how to socialize with people and do other things all on my own.
But
by how
for
people
me,
behave.
For me, it took me a long time. I just couldn't get it. These things weren't things that I figured out, and so forth. And there was no explaining to me. Now we can make the argument one way or another. Is like, oh fuck me, I should just die off then because I'm obviously inferior.
Your parents didn't do a good job.
Or that's the other way of looking at it.
And then there are people who have restrictions because they either lack the social perception, reasoning skills,
Or
because
they're
of some
imposed restrictions by someone
cognitive
else.
deficiency
Or
or
they just have
disinclination.
health problems which prevent them from being able to interact with people in general.
So let's talk about in this government we want to build, or this society we want to build, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the topic of today's episode.
Oh, shit.
We've been stuck on education and trying to figure out what we should be teaching in education.
Well, that's a good part of the
We
discussion,
don't
because
need
we can look at education and what its
education.
role, what the governmental role in education, how is it beneficial and where is it not beneficial.
To some degree, because I am a huge advocate for learning stuff through observation.
Not everybody has that ability.
I understand that, but I like the fact that we can get people to learn things through giving them enough information to make the connection to the next one. Now, not everyone can do that, I understand.
Nope.
But I think there should be, in school, there should be a way that you can root out who is able to do that, and we should then specialize education for individuals based on where they fall.
Oh my God, meritocracy.
Yeah, but
How
the problem
racist.
is that meritocracy is, by definition, it's objective, because
Yes,
it's
but
being.
so is everything.
Well, okay, but now
Thank you, Gregory.
Let me just chime in on that. People learning better in some ways than other. A lot of that is horseshit, and I'm gonna explain why. Because and I'm gonna explain the psychology behind it. And this is a video I did on on my regular channel that I post bullshit on. I used to bullshit on.
Oh, so you're just ranting.
How many channels do you have, man?
I don't know.
Oh.
I
Just like
have
that,
all
that
the
shirt that guy had. He doesn't know where it is.
Oh yeah. No, but anyways, so everybody learns through all these mediums. The whole idea of people learning better through one way or another is not an inherent deficiency or ability in that person. It is something that through their experiences and through the experiences they've had in their upbringing or whatnot, they favor one thing over the other. And what happens naturally? Okay, well, if you favor the one thing, that's when the dopamine hits. If you don't favor the other thing, I don't want to be interested in it. People are fucking short attention span, ladies bastards.
What?
And what's that?
What?
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 Squirrel.
Squirrel. Yeah. So quit reading my thoughts. But so the excuse is. The excuse is I don't learn well in this, when really you do learn well in that, you just don't like to learn well in that. In order to actually learn and be successful in your education and in anything you learn, you have to incorporate as many different methodologies as you can. Because what happens inside the human brain, because the human brain is a constantly adapting mechanism, where neurons are constantly realigning. So the many different ways of learning the same subject matter forms a network within inside the human brain which ties information and understanding to different parts of your physical characteristics.
Sort of the way the web works, the World Wide Web.
Right. That's why I was one thing I said in my video is the brain is a network.
Do you know what I just heard you say?
What did I say?
People do learn differently. We must appeal to those ways of learning, so that way we can teach them to learn all the ways of learning. So that way they can learn everything.
But remember what I said
possible.
last episode. Education is 90% what a person does and 10% what they get from somebody else. If somebody wants to learn something and truly wants to learn something, they take the time out to expose themselves in all different ways. Now, you can, as a teacher, expose people in different ways. Like what I would do, and I learned this trick from the Navy, was when I put out something that I want people to write the notes on, while they're taking the notes, they see the notes, that's optical, that's visual. They're writing the notes, that's tactile, and I would also do auditory simulation where I would repeat the thing I wanted them to write down in a soft voice.
Congratulations.
Did you also
Important.
lick their ears as part of the auditory stimulation?
They had to pay extra for that. That was if they did the extra credit assignment. I would lick their ears, but not with my tongue. I would go down to the local butcher and buy a goat's tongue, and then
I still think that if in our education system we should be teaching all these subjects, but we should try and find out who is going to learn in certain ways better, and then try to get them into those
But the problem
subjects.
is if you only appeal to who learns what way better, if you only teach people in ways they learn better.
You're making an assumption here. I'm saying that we have a teacher that can teach one way and a teacher that can teach another way. So
Okay.
that way they both get to the
All right,
same
I
point.
get what you're saying. Okay.
I'm
And
not
yes.
saying that you take child A and child B and you say
Right.
child A
No,
is...
I get you. I get
Okay.
you. Now here's a question with that. Is right, because then you're talking about cost analysis, right?
Yeah, I think our cost analysis should include most methods of learning, not all. And I say that from a standpoint is that just like in life, you can do most things, you cannot do all things.
Now, here's something interesting I would like to try. And one of the things, since we're going to talk about government and education. One thing we'll come back to is how should this be moderated, like what governmental level and whatnot. But here's one thing I would like to try. Aside from teaching students and they learn and so forth,
Yep.
and they pass the tests and blah blah blah, I would like to try having a situation where students that are in 1 year, they spend like an hour of their day tutoring or working with students of a previous year or previous material, which develops,
I would approve that.
it develops mastery for the older student, gives an extra source of input for the younger student.
I would approve that, but I would only approve that for the individuals who are struggling the most.
I would do it for all.
I understand that, but I think it would be better for the individuals who are struggling the most versus the ones who are doing it the best. And I say that from the fact that someone who has to be forced to teach information is going to inevitably be able to pick up that information, and they might learn something from the person they are teaching it to about how they are learning it. Yes?
For the advanced students or the medium level students, it would be useful to build in a metacognition, learning about the process of thinking.
That's
so
why
that they can observe themselves trying out different methods of thinking.
See, ultimately, I think that most students would end up having to teach somebody something because no one student can ever be good at everything.
Right.
Someone who's not good at physical sports might be really good at the sciences or the maths. And so that person would have to be forced to teach the physical sports to another student so that way they could get into that type of stuff better.
Yeah, but like I said, I would have all the students, not just select few, because it's another way of rounding out the individual students' capabilities, regardless of whatever their position, how well they absorb because you got a lot of people that don't understand, but they learn the process and they knows the right answer when told.
What you mean
But
they hear, but they don't listen?
Well, no, but like they'll learn the like this is me with math for a long time. Like people thought I was good at math. No, I just am good at following directions. So when I see this, I do this. Didn't really understand fully what I was doing until I got into my adult life and I started retrospecting on everything. So,
I think I understood math right away in some regards because
in some regards, but
at an early age, I learned how to manipulate the Monopoly board. So that way I could always know exactly where I'm going, no matter what I roll the die. So if I'm on Baltic and I roll 10, I know that I'm going to be on the third space that is on the next row because every entire row, every side of the board is only 10 spaces. So
just buy up all the houses, prevent everybody from getting hotels.
Now, did you?
No, we don't do that. We go for the full bankruptcy.
Wait, hold on, because I have to ask this question. Did you play Monopoly with the actual rules or the bullshit rules that everybody did because they were too lazy to actually play with the actual rules?
I did both.
I did M&A Monopoly.
When I played with my younger cousins, we played with the bullshit, and when I played with my older cousins, we played with the actual rules.
Where you had the auctions whenever something lands on a property.
We were very, very vicious in our game, and I would tell you, if you are not a fan of Monopoly, it is because you're playing with too many rules where you get free money, and free money is bullshit because it extends the game by 2 or 3 hours. Do not play with that. If you play with the rail rules, then within 45 minutes, there will be a decisive winner, or someone who looks like is a decisive winner, because money does not come from nowhere except when you pass go. Usually money flows out of your pocket when you pick up community chests, by the way.
Yeah. There is no getting money when you get free parking.
Moving on from education, because I think we've come to a
Well, here's the other thing. So, because we're talking about building a society and the government of that society and so forth, where should the level of control of education be as far as the governmental body is
up
concerned?
until where we consider someone to be an adult.
No, I'm talking about as far as the governmental body. Who regulates what the educational programs are?
We have an entire body dedicated towards education.
All right, and who regulates that body?
Someone else who is also in a set. Okay, what I liked about the United States government, in theory, was the fact that there are 3 branches, and each branch is supposed to regulate each other.
Right.
Okay? I think we should have something similar to that, in which you have a group of bodies, a number of bodies of people that are keeping check on each other. Okay. But what you have to do is make certain, because I think the problem we've run into right now with the United States and the good experiment that we've done is that the people in one group are colluding with the people in the other group who are colluding with the guy that is in the other group. Okay, and so there has to be, I think, more checks and balances built into the system, so that way there is never.
I think the term you're looking for is more decentralization.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. I guess that's a way of saying
I like
it.
the idea of a curriculum of minimal competency at the age of minor emancipation, say 18 years. And you get there whichever way you choose, whether it be co-ops across parents, public schools for those who are lazy, private schools, and let money follow the kids, fire the teachers' unions, fuck them hard.
Well, I mean that's when it comes to teachers' unions and whatnot, it's a mixed bag, just like with anything else. But so I mean, one thing I would do differently with regards to as far as how education is run in general is rather than having curriculums based on a year, because we've reached this level of efficiency where classrooms are not really. What the fuck was that?
It's probably Red's phone.
Oh, but where we have these classrooms, but we don't need to limit things specifically to the annual curriculum because people learn at different rates. So it would be interesting to try and have this regulating body, or not really regulating body, but analyzing body.
It's a regulating body.
Well, no,
Sorts.
regulating. I said, and that wouldn't be in this context. It wouldn't be regulating, but a body that will assign different subjects, so kids to classes in different subjects, which does present a problem when you're dealing with especially young kids. But people, kids learn different subjects at different rates, so the ones that can advance faster in a certain subject can proceed to the second year, the quote second year math, even though while they're a first year student and so forth.
So that is something I approve of, because I believe that students of all ages learn at different rates. Some people learn incredibly fast, some people learn incredibly slow, and there may be a point where both groups eventually catch up to each other. But just because someone learns something very slowly doesn't mean that they are ultimately dumber or stupider than the person.
Yeah, that's not necessarily. So who now? If we do have these or realistically regulating bodies in general, what level of government should they be at? Should it be at the local level, at state level, federal level? Just compared to our current.
Hold up. You are talking about something that has nothing to do with our imaginary government, our imaginary nation, because our imaginary nation is not a nation of individual countries.
Okay.
Our imaginary nation is one nation. Okay?
Is it a federalist nation, as
Well,
ours is intended
what
to
it
be?
is we are, instead of being 50, rather in this case, 13, that expanded to 50, individual states where there is all of this individualized, different regulatory structure between state to state to state. I would say that ours is an entire country where...
Okay, well, here's my idea for that. Ready?
Right.
It's something where over the course of time you acquire badges, right? And it's completely self-directed by the student. And you need to have certain minimum badges to show minimal competency as an adult reaching the age of legal emancipation, say 18 years.
Is somebody
wait
Girl
a
Scout?
minute.
This is completely different from the topic we're talking about.
Oh, what a disappointment. Never mind.
Was somebody a Girl Scout?
No, I don't mean those stinking badges.
Well,
I hate Girl Scouts.
There should
Bunch
be,
of cunts.
No,
for all of this, there would be, of course, a local, okay? In addition to the local, there would also be your next level up as well.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about local, state, and federal, just
But
as a point of
we don't
comparison.
have really any.
Just as a point of comparison, not to say that this is how there would be in this new government.
Yeah, I don't think there would be really a state thing at that point. We would
What's
have the
the name?
local.
What's the name of
which
this
might be for the
country?
region.
Does it have a cool name?
I don't know. Do we have a cool name? Bobland.
No.
No.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
That
It is
sucks.
terrible. So is this country. No.
Cut
I
it
hate
out.
this country.
It's the one you got.
It is. Our name is called the Greater Charleslandia. I go with that because it gets GNC into it as well.
We need a better name than that.
We also have Lesser Charleslandia.
How about we call this Fantasyland?
No. Narnia.
Narnia.
No.
Boo.
But
Not Yourlandia.
not Yourlandia. I approve
Taco
of
Bell.
that. I approve of that. Not Yourlandia.
Not Yourlandia.
But there would be a local, okay, and the local government would be responsible for having any additional laws and such that would be specific to that region. So, like a region was more snowy
Right.
or more foresty, and so that would allow for heavier hunting or
So you're
whatever.
saying
You know, if there was mining
competency-
that needed to be done in that area.
Competency.
more-
You're saying competency relevant to where the person lives.
Well, I mean, that's theoretically that's how the states are supposed to work. Is that the states have different laws based on how the states function, such as if you go out west before you get out to all the way out west where California is, in the middle of the country, since it's more farmland there, and since people are generally more spread about, their laws are created in such a way that is better for them because they
Better
don't have
for the
big-
area.
Yes.
Not only that, you also have difference in people in general. Like some people leave one area and join another just because they don't like the way that the laws.
If you were to ask someone who lives in the city why they need a gun, they would not be able to define that reason except for possibly protection. Whereas if you were to talk to someone in Vermont who is living out in the middle of who knows fuck where, they would say, well, I need a
fucking
gun.
deer and rabbit on my farm.
Exactly. So they need a gun not only for protection, but also for protection against the wildlife.
So here's a question for you. Here's
for
a question for you.
majority of
In that fantasy country,
Not
would
Yourlandia.
everybody be subject to a firearm safety training, regardless whether you're in the city or out in the country?
But it's all part of, didn't we discuss part of that?
Would that be
Or did we
part of
not
the
get to that? I don't think we
basic
got
curriculum?
Well, I don't think we talked about safety. We did talk about before. We did say that people should have the right to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was
because
another one of those classes
that-
I
that's
thought
the-
should be in school.
That's another. Yeah, but in general, that was like a. Oh, I'm just trying to recap what we said. That it was a natural thing that people defend themselves and evolution and whatnot. But I don't think we actually talked last time about what, if any, requirements we should have on firearms or weapons in general.
No. I mean, you can
yeah.
choose to own a weapon or not, but at least know how to handle one safely. And because I find
Well, that's why I was saying that there should be classes in school when you're going to school as you're getting your basic education. In addition to that, there should be courses on weapons, so that way when you get out into the wild, wherever you decide to live, wherever you're living, you know how to properly defend yourself in case the
Jets or the
worst
Sharks.
happens.
The Jets or the Sharks pay you a visit.
Right. In case the Jets or the Can I get their signatures? I'm always looking for that one Jets guy's signature. The best guy. I don't know who he is. They all suck, but I'm sure there's a team called the Sharks too.
I think you and I are talking about different Jets.
Oh,
and Sharks.
absolutely, absolutely.
But now I was that it's interesting you bring that up because I was watching somebody last week and they brought up the idea of you need to take a course and get a license to get a car. Why not a gun as well?
You need to get a license for a gun, I think.
Well,
or parts of.
Here's a difference.
Like that.
Here's a difference in that, at least it applies to our current system and our current constitution. The right to keep and bear arms is a constitutional right. Having a car, not a constitutional right. So there's a disconnect there.
There is, but I also think there's also a disconnect between what people call arms, because arms used to be armaments, and armaments is not just guns; it is swords and
like that.
Yes, it is weapons of all sorts are considered armaments. And there's a conflation of arms people seem to use. And I really get sick of the fact that people keep conflating arms with exclusively.
They
only
narrow
with,
it. They narrow it to guns.
I don't know why, because
Ignorance.
if I need a sword to protect
It-
myself,
it's-
if I need a bow staff,
Oh, you know what? We can. That's actually. So I know I mentioned about episode 19 is where we're going to talk about like the different words and terminology, but we decided to make that our next episode, and that's something we can get into. Let me write that down as a note for what in the hell is that?
I don't know.
Is that you, Red?
Nope.
Well, then your computer's doing something. That I
Maybe
don't
my
know.
computer's doing something. I don't
Yep.
fucking know.
Hello, NSA.
Let me put that in.
I love these three-letter
Arms.
organizations.
But yeah, what the fuck was that noise? I have no clue. No idea. Maybe. Oh, you know what it is? My battery's dying on my speaker.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Turn
Dan.
you off.
No soundboarding anymore.
Oh.
So yeah, education, as far as our government, and because we're running out of time here, so I'm trying to recap. So you're talking about it's still a multi-tiered system of government where there's different levels, different localities, but
Of course,
but
it
you
would
still
have to be.
right. Yeah,
I mean,
because you need that. You can't just have empires have never worked in the past.
Every single government, whether it is a totalitarian government to whatever we have right now, republic, democracy, whatever you're calling it, every single government has always had local leaders and the governmental leaders. Okay.
Yeah, different steps of
Absolutely.
leaders.
You got your guy that runs the town.
Federalism,
you got
baby.
your guy that runs all of the towns in the surrounding area, the county. Then you got your guy above that, and
Now,
then you got your guy above that too.
Here's the thing, because when we talk about government, should these people be leaders?
Yes.
What does that mean?
They would
Well-
be, okay. They would be, by virtue of their position, they would be a leader. Okay, not necessarily because I don't see a lot of our governors or senators or congressmen as leaders in the sense that they don't actually do anything, but they should be doing something.
Well,
And
here's
their-
the thing, because
Their
this
position
country,
puts them in a leadership role.
right? So, but there's a disparity. Well, not as there's a it's not aligned. Being a leader and being a leader of the people and being a servant of the people, that causes problems because there's a disconnect there,
There is.
right? So I don't understand
You can
why
do both at the same time.
not necessarily,
Yes, absolutely.
because a leader commands, a servant follows orders.
No, you're conflating the two things to very narrow definition.
Well, that's
You're
That's where I'm getting
exclusively
to, though.
looking at. Let me interrupt you.
okay.
A leader is a servant of the people in that he is serving the people and their interests, but
Okay.
he is also leading the people to make certain that their interests are best served. Okay. Now that's a little confusing, but let me expand
It
upon
can
that.
So you're saying-
conflict, but it can also be congruent. It depends on the
Right. So
situation.
you're saying servant of the intent, but leader of the execution.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've said before, I prefer a more direct democracy. And really, at this point, just because I don't like people and I think people are stupid, I would much rather have a pure direct democracy at this point. Let everybody fucking eat their own words. You
yeah,
know.
but then
I don't believe in a direct democracy for a lot of reasons. I think it would be entertaining to watch from the outside because there
Well,
would
yeah,
be,
that's
there'd
what
be
I
a
mean.
lot of it. But since I'm living in the society, that would be eventually the direct democracy.
I would have to agree with Gregory because you do need the checks and balances to protect from the tyranny of the majority. That
Okay.
was the beauty of the
Okay.
three segment government with checks and balances,
Mhm. Now let me
as
pose
as
something
well
to
as
you.
federalist system.
Let me pose something to you because I've said this before on the show. Because regardless of whether it's tyranny of majority or tyranny of minority, you're going to have one or the other. And either way, it's still a tyranny. Now, our system that we have right now is tyranny of the majority, tyranny of the minority, supposedly through the majority. That's
No, we don't.
questionable.
We don't have that.
But
I don't think that is even what we have.
I mean, so
It is not
realistically,
tyranny of the minority, but based on the tyranny of majority.
no, supposedly based on the tyranny of the
That's not
majority.
even what. That's not even close to what we have.
Then what do we
Or
vote
even
for?
supposedly what we have.
Why do we vote?
What do you mean? Why do we vote?
Why do we vote?
We vote because we want to get certain things done.
No,
Or want
we
certain-
vote. That's
wanna
why
have
we're
people-
told that we vote. The
the
reason why we vote is to have a person elected.
Yes, but that's not tyranny of the minority.
They have the power to do what they want after they're elected, right?
No, they do not.
No, there are also more checks and balances.
Okay.
That is a misconstruing
All right,
of what is actually happening.
Hold on. Let's look at what's going on now, because you have two companies, the DNC and the RNC, that really I can go beyond that and just say, hey, we don't have neither. We just have the Federal Reserve running everything.
You're talking about
I'm looking in that deeper level.
Your deeper level still is not what we actually have.
Okay, explain.
Okay, what we
We've
have
got a couple minutes left, so hurry and get it in.
What we have as far as society goes is we have teams. We have football team A and baseball team B.
Supposedly.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, those two teams are fighting against each other for power.
Supposedly, but go ahead.
I believe that since they're both two different sports altogether, they work together to make certain that they are the only ones who are allowed to be in power, and that if anyone ever gets into power that is not part of the football team or the baseball team, let's say the soccer team tries to get into power, they are not allowed to have power.
Okay, so are these teams the
majority?
These teams are majority.
Yes, they are not the minority.
I disagree.
The minority of those people who are in charge are the people with money.
Uh-huh.
They are not the majority
They
of
are
people
the real
who
people
don't
in charge.
have money. What I'm saying is that it is somewhat of what you say, but it is not exactly what you say.
That's why I said it's a tyranny of the minority that gets promoted by a supposed tyranny of the majority.
Yes, but that is not actually what's happening.
Listen, we have these three branches of our federal government. You get all the people in all three branches of all the same people. Who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them?
Is this not why we discussed in our first issue how long someone's allowed to be in office?
Right. But I'm talking about right now. Who's going to stop them? Right now, because we saw this in France.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to stop them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm looking to stop
Greg's giving you that hopium. What do you got, Red?
My wish to really contain the extent of government is inside of the executive branch, having term limits so that these careerists who have been inside governmental agencies for decades have term limits and they have to rejoin the private segment.
Think about that for a second, Red. You're saying that your hope to prevent the concentration of power is within a concentrated power.
Exactly. I want to, because there's so many foci of concentration, and they're struggling and pitting against one another. I mean, the first thing to contain government is that you need to starve it of money. So straight away, taxes have to be radically slashed. And secondly, the whole purpose of a bureaucracy is to increase its power and propagate itself. So you build it so that the careerists who are there are required to join the private segment after a certain period of time, because what I've encountered frequently is that these government peeps, even when they're well-intentioned, have no
I think
clue.
you're confusing. Hold on a second. I think you're confusing the intent of people in a government position with the inherent nature of a bureaucracy.
Well,
I have an idea.
Well, I can see your point, and you're part right, and I disagree in part.
Okay.
Okay, one of my bigger issues right now with our current government is that I have to pay them money regardless of how they spend it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Regardless of how they spend it. And I can never get a refund on this money that I spent. Okay, I would love to see if there's a way we could implement such a system that I will give you money while you're spending it in ways that the majority of people approve of. But if
that's what
the
elections
majority
are
of people
supposed to
decide
be.
that they don't like how it's being done, we can elect to not give you money at all. And that way, you are forced to make
I'm going to have
decisions.
so much fun in our next episode.
Oh, please.
And speaking of our next episode, that is all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to check our next episode for whatever the reason, if you are fucking watching us, which is titled War with the World's Words, where we're going to get into buzzwords like government. I can't wait to get into that one.
This is going to be a good episode.
Or don't watch it. Fuck you either way.
I love you. Goodbye, darlings.
Oh, and with that said...
What, am I raining on your misanthropy? Am I raining on your misanthropy? I'm so sorry.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. This is why I started it early.
Fuck you.
He's Greg. I'm
Remember-
Charles.
Remember to never question
Never ask for proof,
and always believe what you're told by the news and politicians.
no matter what. Now go back to sleep, fuckers. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good, but once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.